Today's story was written by Reddit user Arivael. The hallway echoed with the sound of stomping boots as a 4-metre-long from nose to tail tip bipedal reptile marched loudly towards the door to the Admiral's office. It was considered bad form in the Union Navy for someone to storm into their commanding officer's office unannounced, but the Rekinta were known to being rash when angry, and the Rear Admiral was right now rather furious. She threw the door open and marched up to the desk her superior was seated behind, glaring down at the old, white-bearded human. "What is the meaning of this?" she snarled as she tossed down a printed copy of the Admiral's response to her request and a copy of his after-action report to Union Command. The human looked up slowly, putting their pad down as they turned their eyes to the angry lizard before them. "Excuse me?" He seemed rather calm, given the situation, a fact that the still fuming reptile failed to notice. "Not only have you refused my request to court-martial one of the captains in my flotilla, but you have gone and recommended them and their ship for a commendation for bravery, bordering on insanity in homage to their ship's name. What nonsense is that?" She was flexing the claws on her hands and twitching her tail as she spoke, almost snarling at the human. "Do you know why human ships have names?" he asked calmly, looking at the now perplexed walking iguana before him. "You just prefer them over the alphanumeric designations assigned to their hull?" She has started to calm now, the odd question having thrown her mind off. "No, if that was the case, some names would be used far less, some would be used more or at all, and we would not reuse as many, with new names being more common. No, we name them because a name has meaning and history to it." They stood and gestured to the window of their office, looking out over most of the fleet, then started to point. "That destroyer there, Eskimo, is named for a ship that, in its first action, had its bow blown off by a torpedo, and instead of withdrawing, turned around and reversed towards the enemy while continuing to fire its remaining main guns. That one there, that even gets its own custom paint, the Grey Ghost, as she is also known. That moniker comes from the same conflict where the enemy thought they had sunk her on several occasions, just for her to come back and reap a price from them." He would point out several more ships and inform the Xeno officer what made their name famous in human history before going and sitting back down. "These names represent something to their crews, a legacy they have to live up to. If you had read the Working with the Human Fleet info pack the Union issues you, you would know that, and have known to look up what it meant for the human ships under your command." His voice had been slowly rising as he spoke, making the large lizard start to back up a bit. Then he suddenly stood. "So the fact you are trying to have the captain of Puran court-martialed for recklessly endangering his ship by closing to point defense range with an enemy battleship after you ordered him to harass the ship is not a good reflection on you." He sat back down. "Now get out of my office before I have you relieved of duty for behaviour unbecoming of an officer." With that, the reptile almost scurried from the room. "Every time, no matter how many times they are told to make them read that damn document, this happens," the human muttered.